Well, good morning and welcome to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. This is my twice weekly live webcast, and we are live this morning as the possibly choppy video and audio is suggesting, because I'm operating on Wi-Fi at the moment and it doesn't seem to be operating very well, which is always a bit of a problem, unfortunately, when I've not got a direct connection. Hopefully it won't impinge too much on the show. If you're having real problems with it, do tell me and I'll see if I can switch location and get a bit closer to the router. Right, anyway, what have we got for you today? Fairly short show today, as I'm on holiday, as you may guess from the change of attire. The first story of the day is the biggest meeting of female bikers, which took place up in the Triumph Visitor Centre at Hinckley on July 24th. It beat the record, but it was hit by thieves. The better news about Triumph is that there is word that we could finally see the long-awaited entry-level model as soon as this autumn. Rumours are now rife that there is a new bike or possibly even bikes about to appear. My guess would be a series of bikes using the same design. Shortages around the supply chain issues left over from COVID are still a problem, and Honda have now had to suspend orders for 10 popular models. We'll have a look at that story. Ducati, though, their financial reports are said to be exceptional, and that could be due to their continuing success on the track, where they've just posted their 1000th podium, which puts them ahead of every other manufacturer. And then finally, I'll come on to today's discussion point, where I'll ask, are Essex Police right to say don't filter, it's too dangerous? That's what they put out in a Twitter on their Twitter account a few days ago, and it has caused a bit of a storm. Before we go any further, don't forget the Survival Skills live online talk series. I'll just put the picture of the events up for you. There they are. If I can just zoom in a little bit so you can see that a little bit more clearly and try and move it so it's actually on screen. There we are. So next events, first one is the Emergency Services show, which is on Thursday the 18th, so just under 2 weeks time now. So do pop along if you can possibly make it. It's at the Route 1066 Cafe, just outside Robertsbridge, and Tunbridge postcode there, so you can find it. 11 till 2, the activities are going on. The Emergency Services gives it away. There will be collections for Doc Bike and the local Blood Biker service, I believe, too. And I'm expecting to see various police, ambulance, and so on in attendance, and I'll be there too, and I'll be happy to talk about Science of Being Seen, and I will of course have some of my books for sale, so do pop along if you can possibly make that. That is Thursday the 18th of August at the 1066 Route 1066 Cafe down south of London, so not too far out of the capital. What else have we got? Well, the August live webcast has just happened last week. That was the full in-depth presentation on the Science of Being Seen. So we're back to a better biking topic in September, and that'll be systems and the need to ride systematically. And I'll be explaining the difference between the two and pointing out that it's not the system so much as being systematic that is really important. That one has already caused some controversy over on my Facebook page, and I dare say it'll cause some more on the night. So do tune in if you want to have an insight into what the difference between the two terms actually is. And then October, similarly, I'll be defining the difference between some specific terms: visibility, conspicuity, and camouflage, and how they interoperate when we're out there on the bike. I will try and get another mini ride out in before the end of August, but I haven't got a date for that yet. I've got several other things kicking around. And as usual, Tidy HQ is the place to go if you want to book any of those. The link is up on the preamble to the screen, and I will put it it up in a bit. Right, okay, so what else have we got to talk about? Well, as I said, the biggest meeting of female bikers ever took place on Sunday, July 24th at the Visitor Experience at Hinckley, the Triumph location basically. 1,549 women riders were counted in, and that total easily exceeds the previous record of 1,132. Now, the meet was organised by Sherry Wolf and Nimi Patel via their Moto Advisor Facebook page. They also managed to raise a fairly impressive £9,000 to be split between two charities. That's Leicestershire and Rutland Blood Bikes and the Midlands Air Ambulance. But as you probably know if you've been following this show regularly, bike theft and the issues it have caused have cropped up quite heavily recently. And just a few days ago, I got a tip off from Sue, who regular on this show and on my Facebook page, that a number of attendees' bikes had been stolen. Now, it appears at first sight that with many of the bikes, so many bikes gathered basically in one general location, and with many predictably stopping overnight at local hotels the evening before the meet, the event was targeted by thieves. Now, what's rather odd is the only actual press report of the thefts I can find is the one in Motorcycle News. So whether that's because the police simply haven't released the reports to the local press as they would normally do, and the Motorcycle News got tipped off, of course, by bikers, I really don't know. But anyway, the paper says that the volunteer crime-busting group of Biker, who it says harness the power of social media to get the word out and recover stolen machines, are reporting that up to 20 thefts may have taken place ahead of the event. Although MCN did confirm, or did say that they were unable to confirm that with police. Now, amongst the bikes attacked was one belonging to a helper of the organisers themselves, and they must have heard something, because they say they ran out to check on the bikes and found people running away from it and a lock ground halfway through. In another incident, West Midlands Police have reported that a woman working in a local hotel went outside to investigate what was going on, and she was punched in the face by people attempting to steal bikes, and they're appealing, not surprisingly, for witnesses. Leicester Police say they've investigated 3 incidents of motorcycles being taken from hotel car parks, and they say some of the machines have been recovered and arrests have been made. So what do we do about events like this? Well, I'd say, first of all, apart from being fairly assiduous with your security, my advice would be don't park in the obvious places near the event overnight. Try and find a village inn or something. You're probably going to find one not very many miles away, short ride, but it will be out in the sticks. It will be well away from the big chain hotels where many of these attacks seem to have happened. And it might not be quite so convenient, but your bike's far less likely, I would have said, to be targeted, particularly if it's actually tucked up around the back of the place in the car park. So that would be my advice in that situation. Now, in some rather better news for Triumph, there's word that we could see a new entry-level model as soon as this autumn. Now, for a decade, we've been waiting for a baby Triumph that was promised to be the first fruits of a link-up between the Hinckley manufacturer and Bajaj Auto in India. Now, we saw renders, drawings, even spy shots eventually, which appeared to show a single cylinder machine of low capacity, probably between 200 and 300 cc's in size. And it did appear to be fairly close to production, but it never actually appeared. Now, I wondered what had happened to that project, but it seems that despite reaching the road test stage, it was actually cancelled in 2014. The official wording that I've just recently seen was that it was on hold for strategic reasons. But it seems at least part of the reason for the failure for the bike to appear was that Triumph didn't actually manage to get what they wanted built, which was a huge new factory. And so the partnership languished until a new deal was signed to create new models and a marketing strategy that would benefit both companies. And the bikes would be produced in collaboration, and they would come out of a new manufacturing facility in Chakan near Pune. Now, that happened in 2020, and the word has been that the first of the bikes to be produced from that factory will actually debut at this autumn's Milan show. And that will be in time, of course, to finally hit dealers in early 2023. So what exactly is the bike? Now, this is where we get into some speculation. Triumph themselves have given away little information except to say that the bikes will be somewhere between 250 and 750 cc. So that basically makes things as clear as mud. But they do say that all the bikes that are released will carry the Triumph badge, and although they will be on sale locally and across Asia, they'll also be available in the UK and Europe generally. Now, one suggestion I've seen is it will be a smaller engined version of the Trident, but frankly, given the relative cost of a three-cylinder motor and the fact that Triumph will be competing with twin-cylinder bikes at that kind of capacity from other manufacturers, it seems very unlikely that as they drop the CCs, they will they wouldn't drop a cylinder at least. I presume they might sleeve down the motor, but that would make it incredibly under square. They could make, I suppose, shorten the stroke. But whatever they do, my guess is it probably won't be a three-cylinder, simply because the manufacturing costs would remain the same despite the change in CC. My guess is they will go for a different machine with fewer cylinders. Now, since the design work has presumably long since been completed on that initial single cylinder model that appeared, one guess is that something between 200 and 300 cc will appear, potentially kind of called a Tiger Cub, and the emphasis will be on entry-level price and large volume sales. Now, it's fed by rumours that Bajaj is actually developing for themselves a completely new 250cc single-cylinder adventure bike, which could be seen before the year is out. And there is obviously the implication that this is a locally badged output from the Triumph tie-up, in as much as it would be the R&D that Triumph have done, but it would be built separately by Bajaj if the deal to badge everything as a Triumph from that new factory it comes to fruition. Now, speculation says that the first bike out of the Triumph factory is likely to be a roadster or a scrambler with that 250cc engine, which they say will share design cues from Triumph's bigger bike, so no surprise there. That would be obvious. But alternative reports are indicating that a bigger twin-cylinder motor is likely to be on the cards, because their commentators are pointing out that since the initial 2012 deal, aspirations in India have risen significantly higher. So a bigger twin-cylinder machine does seem reasonable to me. The Indian market is already flooded with small bikes, frankly, and manufacturers like Royal Enfield have been increasingly targeting the mid-range bike market with significant success too. I mean, you only have to look at the Royal Enfield twins to see that. So whilst Triumph have been keen to increase presence in Asia, if I had to put my own 50p on it, I would guess that we would see a mid-price 400 or 500, a roadster. Again, the name Speed Twin has been suggested for that, and possibly a scrambler variant, but they would go straight in to the A2 license category in Europe, a market which Triumph have been pretty much absent for 4 years, aside from restricted motorcycles. It does make sense to build a bike which is natively fitting the limits. We will know more on November the 8th, because that's when the bike show opens. Right, now, okay. Well, I've left the poster up all the time. What am I doing there? I should have myself back full screen, because that story doesn't apply anymore. Now, I was on my regular bike forum the other day, and somebody popped up a link to a story suggesting that there are currently shortages of tyres, and the blame was placed on the continuing supply chain issues that businesses around the world are continuing to face. Shipping backups, lack of containers, congestion at ports, and of course the latest in the range of overseas antivirus lockdowns. Now, there was also a suggestion that the situation was being made worse by people, whoever people are, stockpiling tyres just in case. Now, whether this is true or not, I do happen to have a couple of spare tyres for my bikes hung up on the shed. Whether this is true or not, I don't know. The story was badly written, and it did smack of renter-writer clickbait, but it does appear that the issues, plus the additional semiconductor shortage, which is ongoing, have hit Honda. In a press release dated August the 1st, 2022, Honda announced it's actually suspending orders on 10 popular models due to the slow breakdown of global logistics systems, as they put it. And the affected bikes are the Rebel 250, the Rebel 500, the Rebel 1100, the CRF 250 Rally, the CRF 250L, the Forza, the ADV 150, the Grom, the Monkey 125, and the Hunter Cub. Now, Honda, just like every other bike manufacturer, rely on parts supplies from around the world to complete a bike. So that would explain the issues that they're having. The statement also interestingly blamed a recent change in Japanese law regarding exhaust gas regulation, although how that would affect exports I'm not too sure, unless the new Japanese rules are tougher than the rest and all the bikes need to be upgraded, so they're not building separate models for deposits overseas and purchases locally. Right, okay. Excuse me, I hope you're not having too many problems with your audio and video, and I hope it's not jumping around too much. Just as a reminder, Elevenses goes out on Wednesdays and Sundays. Normally goes out live. Very occasionally I put out a recorded show, and even more rarely I put out a no show as I'm busy doing something else. As I say, I am on holiday this week, so this is a bit of a short show, but do make sure you look back again on Wednesday for the next show, isn't it? I'm forgetting which day of the week it is at the moment. Now I'm on holiday. Back to Ducati then. So their latest financial report actually claimed exceptional results from January to June this year, with revenue rising by no less than 5.4%, and that takes it up from 514 million to 542 million euros. That's the highest figure ever recorded by Ducati for the first 6 months of the year, although of course the value of cash does tend to go down every year. They also showed, though, a marked increase in operating profit, up almost 15%, which is quite a jump, 59 to 68 million euros compared with the same period in 2021. And that's on top of what Claudio Domenicali, who is the CEI of Ducati, called a record year with the best profits ever in terms of delivery, revenues and operating profit. But he said it's one that is challenging. Now, Italy remains the top market for Ducatis, just over 6,000 motorcycles delivered there in the first half of 2022, followed by North America with about 5,250 units. 3,700 odd went to Germany and 2,600 odd to France. But the real growth market is perhaps not surprisingly, China. 2,411 motorcycles were sold there, but that was up 12% on the previous year. The Multistrada V4 is their most popular machine, with 6,000 plus units shipped, and that's significantly ahead of both the Monster and the 800 Scrambler family, which come in second and third. Now, as I said, Domenicali cites challenging operating conditions so far, and he personally apologised to those who have or will have to wait longer for the bikes. But the implication is really, I suppose, that Ducati's price rises have weathered the supply chain storm. Now, at least some of Ducati's sales success must follow their remarkable tale of results on the track. Although it's been a while since the MotoGP title, arguably for road bikes, it's WSB superbikes that really matter, since that's a silhouette class based on road-going motorcycles. And here, Ducati are actually celebrating their 1,000th podium at a championship round, when Alvaro Bautista won race 1 at the Czech Republic round in Most on July the 30th. No other manufacturer has achieved this landmark. Now, as of last weekend, Bautista led the championship with a 31-point lead over second-placed Jonathan Ray on his Kawasaki, and current champion Toprak Razgatlioglu on his Yamaha is a further 7 points behind. Now, there have been 6 generations of Ducati superbikes over the years, and they've won a total of 383 victories between them since former 500cc world champion Marco Lucinelli took the first 851 to victory in the first round at the UK's Donington Park event. Now, 2 years later, Frenchman Raymond Roche actually won Ducati's first superbike world title on the same machine. And to use a horrible American term, the winningest Ducati of all was the 916, 996, 998 family of bikes, with 120 wins in total, split mostly between Carl Fogarty and Troy Bayliss. Foggy, of course, rode the iconic 916, which is still one of the most beautiful machines ever built, in my opinion, to his first race win in 1994. He finished his career with 55 wins, still more than anybody else has achieved in World Superbikes. Bayliss went on to win 3 titles on 3 different generations of the bike. Nobody else has done that. The 998, the brand new 999, and then again the brand new 1098. Now, the original 851 was actually derived from a 748cc prototype, and of course it used Ducati's trademark L engine. But for the first time, it was equipped with 4 valves per head on the twin and water cooled, and it was also technologically advanced, fast, and relatively reliable. About the only field it never ever triumphed in was endurance racing, where it inevitably shot off like a startled hare at the beginning of the race, only to retire some point through the race. The V4 itself first appeared in 2017 and raced, I believe, at the first time in 2018. So arguably, it's the racetrack success that saved Ducati from financial collapse in the 80s and 90s and put them in the sound place they are now. So a little bit of potted history of Ducati. Don't forget, if you do enjoy the show, you can pop over to my Elevenses page over there. Buy me a coffee. Might be something different from coffee today, as I'm about to go out and enjoy the music festival here down on the Kent coast. But do pop over there. You'll open up hundreds of better biking articles if you do so, all indexed on a yearly basis, so you can find what you're looking for. Yes, they're all still there on Facebook, but trying to find any of them is a bit of mission impossible, in my opinion. Anyway, on to the final bit of today's show. As I said, fairly quick one today. Essex Police have come under fire for a tweet that they popped up. They wrote, "Don't filter, it's too dangerous." So let me try and put that into context. Now, when it comes to motorcycles, messaging from the world of safety, I think, is often far too mixed and muddled. And for more than a decade, I have been flagging up how the constant exhortations of drivers to look harder for bikes doesn't actually help drive down the rate of collisions between cars and motorcycles. It's basically unchanged since the very first Think Bike videos, public information films went out in the mid 1970s. But what it has done is it's created a firm belief amongst riders that it's the driver's job to keep the rider out of trouble, despite any collision being a 2 to tango incident. One road user may set up the circumstances in which the collision can actually happen, but the crash can only be completed if the other rider rides into it. So target, as I said, the target of the ire is Essex Police, and they are under fire for this tweet. If I can actually manage to get the damn thing up on screen, there it is. I'll just read it out to you. You'll see that the bolded headline that, well, there was a bolded headline. It said, "Filtering is dangerous, so don't do it." And when basically the tweet then says, "When the traffic backs up and you're on 2 wheels, it's tempting to speed up and filter through the traffic jam of parked cars. Whether you're on a motorcycle, pedal cycle, or e-scooter, we can all get frustrated by the queue of traffic that doesn't seem to be moving, but your decision to filter through the traffic could result in your being injured or worse. As a smaller vehicle, and they put it in inverted commas, drivers in cars and lorries may not see you approaching them from behind if they haven't checked their mirrors before changing lanes. They may not see you unless it's too late." And it concludes by repeating, "Filtering is dangerous, don't do it." Well, okay, let's digest some of that. I'm not sure why filtering is dangerous. highlighted there. I'll explain that in a moment. Why are vehicles, why are two-wheelers called vehicles in inverted commas? It makes it almost seem as if they shouldn't be sharing the road with everybody else. And speeding up to filter. Who on earth came up with that line? I don't think anyone would actually deliberately ride faster when filtering, cyclist, scooterist, or biker. So, not surprisingly, the response from the two-wheel rider community was pretty instant and overwhelmingly negative. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, cyclists were just as unhappy as motorcyclists since they were also being targeted by that tweet. The Colchester Cycling Campaign webpage said filtering is legal and covered in the National Standards for Cycle Training and the Highway Code. The response on another cycling website was less polite, and it went on to describe the tweet as victim blaming. And frankly, cyclists weren't alone in taking this angle. The Motorcycle Action Group chair, Neil Liversedge, said, "Nobody doubts for a second the genuineness of Essex Police's intentions, but this is bad advice and needs changing immediately." Yes, I wouldn't absolutely agree with that. And then he says, "There is a certain type of car driver, and all of us who ride motorcycles have encountered them, that hate motorcyclists and are envious of our ability to make progress through traffic jams while they sit and stew. These are the people who see us coming in their mirrors and reposition their cars to block us. For the police to say it's dangerous, don't do it, runs the risk that the haters will feel justified in their behaviour, and after they've knocked us off, will point to the police advice and say it's your fault, the police have warned you." Well, really, let's be frank. I've probably spent more years of my life filtering than most riders have. And whilst I did encounter the odd bloody minded driver who deliberately made it difficult for me to filter past, there are far, far more who actually make a physical effort, a positive effort to get out of the way. And the vast majority, frankly, are just oblivious when stuck in a jam to motorcycles filtering past them. So yes, that is uh, actively accusing the police of victim blaming motorcyclists there. So I think that's a very, very wrong attitude to take, and I'm quite happy to put myself out on the line and say that. Now, stereotyping all drivers on the basis of the actions of a few, frankly, is short-sighted, it's counterproductive, and saying so out loud simply reinforces the mistaken belief that many riders have about there being issues between drivers and bikers. Neil Liversedge continued by arguing that the advice also risks poisoning the minds of magistrates, judges, and potential jurors who might, in the future, sit on cases where a car driver has knocked off a filtering biker. It may even lead to bias amongst police officers themselves and CPOS prosecutors. Now, as it happens, I do think he's likely to be just a wee bit more correct on this particular point. Quite a few years ago, a police driver of my acquaintance was giving a talk on rider safety. And one thing he said was that most magistrates do not ride a motorcycle. And he said, more or less verbatim quote, "To them, everything we do on two wheels looks dangerous." Now, I've actually never forgotten that piece of advice because it does actually make sense if you think about it. If you don't ride a motorcycle, things that we do where we feel are perfectly safe, and maneuvers that we make which are under our control and we believe don't put anybody else at risk, there's absolutely no guarantee that somebody else will see that the same way. We may know that our bike will go through a gap. The driver that is driving the car and sees the motorcycle coming up may not. So anyway, that aside, the next problem I see is that Essex is using what's known sometimes as loaded language in this tweet. Now, risk and danger are they're commonly used to represent situations with the potential for some negative consequences when we're speaking about anything that can harm us. But they get confused, they get used interchangeably, and they are not interchangeable. Danger is used in the sense of peril. Yes, if we are knocked off the bike in a stream of musing traffic, there is a real danger of being killed. I was actually rather surprised to discover from an early bike safe event with the Met Police from their presentation that filtering crashes were actually London's second biggest killer. And as I said, I've done quite a lot of it over the years in the past and never actually done anything worse than broken a finger when somebody opened, a taxi driver actually opened his car door to empty his ashtray just as I was filtering past at about 2 miles per hour. Unfortunately, the clutch lever caught a finger and broke it. So that's the worst I've ever had when filtering. I've done rather a lot of it. But we can make a difference to what's going on because the word risk implies an element of chance, but more than that, it implies that there is a decision on our part that we can take to alter the level of that risk. Now, if we choose to filter, we put ourselves in a place where there is a risk, which is created by the situation we're in, and from that does arise the danger of serious injury or even death. But you may think I'm simply dicing words, but really I'm not here. Filtering itself per se is not dangerous in the sense that there is no guarantee of catastrophe when we go filtering. Many riders will filter perfectly happily without incident, but it doesn't mean that there isn't a risk. There is always the chance that somebody we're filtering towards or past will change position just as we're in that vulnerable position. But we do have choices. That's the whole point of using the word risk. And that's I think, the key point that both the tweet and the responses that cried out that the tweet was victim blaming have missed. Collisions are two to tangle instance, as I've already said. One road user puts themselves into a vulnerable position. The other road user, in this case, moves in such a way as to complete the crash for the filtering rider. So either can prevent the crash, not just the driver. And whilst we can't rely on drivers to change the way they use their mirrors, we can change the way we filter. Now, one piece of advice, for example, is I've regularly seen a top speed limit suggested for filtering, and it said that we should only use sort of an excess of speed over and above the queue we're passing, and I've seen that as 10, 15, 20 miles per hour. But sometimes I've seen people saying that it's perfectly safe filtering at 70 miles per hour between vehicles doing 60 because you're only going 10 miles an hour faster. But the fact is, what they've missed is the fact they are doing 70 miles an hour in the first place. And that, of course, gives them little chance of getting out of trouble simply because of reaction times when something does go wrong. They'll travel huge distances, far more than the length of a car, and the distance it will take them to perform some evasive action. So the difference between 10 miles an hour past stationary vehicles and 10 miles an hour past traffic doing 60 is just enormous. It's just not even comparable. If you're filtering at 10 miles an hour, about the worst that can happen is that somebody opens a door just as you're going past, like happened to me, or somebody steps out from a bus. But we can almost stop on the spot. So, the risks really are pretty low at those kind of speeds. Now, the second easy decision is where we filter. Now, lane splitting down the middle of two lanes of stationary traffic on a dual carriageway, for example, is pretty low risk, unless you happen to encounter two kids kicking a football between cars, as that happened to me on one occasion. But the moment the traffic is moving, the risk level goes up. So ask where there are potential problems of people changing lanes. When one lane is moving a lot faster than the other, so-called lane share, you can guarantee that people in the faster moving lane or people will want to get into that faster moving lane from the slower moving lane. So what I would do is simply sit in the faster moving lane until such time as they swap, as they usually do, as everybody jumps into the less congested lane and makes it more congested, and then the situation reverses over. The other thing that I would do is that I would think about where people are going to be changing lanes. So if you're filtering up between moving traffic on the approach to a junction, that's probably asking for trouble too. If we leave it till the very last moment to get into the lane, that's just, of course, where motorcycles tend to filter, and that's a danger place. I'm always very cautious in those situations. So look for places where filtering is least likely to go wrong. And here's my second point here. At the end of the day, the acid test of any riding maneuver is Is what you are doing forcing other road users to change speed, direction, or position to avoid you? If you do, then it's something that we really shouldn't be doing. And my aim when filtering was always stealth. I wanted to be able to make my own decisions, but not have other drivers making sudden changes of speed and direction to avoid me. I almost preferred it if they didn't see me, because then I knew they would behave predictably. It was when they did see me that the unpredictable actions started to happen. So if you're blasting between queues at speed with lights on main beam, auxiliary lights on stun, and your loud exhaust barking away, rev bombing everybody in sight, thinking that now they know I'm coming, I think you're doing it the other way round. I think what you are now doing is relying on other people to get out of your way. And I would suggest that that's a strategy that needs some serious rethinking. Now, the irony of the Essex Police post is that they've actually managed to bring together two groups of two-wheeler users who generally seem to have an unwarranted antipathy towards each other. I said for years our problems are more alike than they are different. And even if neither group usually sees that, the similar responses to the Essex Police gaffe really proves that rather than trying to put the boot into each other, we should be cooperating on road safety issues. Anyway, Essex Police have since deleted the tweet, but the firestorm remains. I'd suggest that whoever controlled that particular Twitter account has probably got some rather sore wrapped knuckles this weekend. Right, that is pretty much it for today. There are a couple of other people who've looked in. Kevin has just looked in. James is around, and Nick's also about. So good to see you guys. Thank you all for looking in. I'm going to sign off now. The next show is Wednesday. Again, I hopefully will be a live one, but just possibly I might have to record it. Depends on how my holiday down here on the Kent Coast pans out. So thank you for looking in. Wherever you ride, do try to stay shiny side up and enjoy your riding out there today. It looks like another lovely day in the UK.